Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? It's real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to gabbing.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter and X, and all of that stuff comes to you courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. Shout out to John Manconi. If you're watching us live, it is the best way to become a full-fledged participant in the show, where your questions, your comments, your concerns, there's going to be a lot of concerns, your heckles, there might be some of that for me today. It's all good. I can deal with it. All that stuff comes in real time. We can see it. We can react to it. And there was plenty of stuff to react to as the Mets go down in Cleveland. They get swept. It has not been good. John Saponaro out in Los Angeles, California. Matt Ibanez holding it down back in New Jersey. We are back together this week. Ibby, I know when the Mets play a series like they just played, when I ask you this, it's not great, but I got to ask you, how you feeling?
Well, I know, John, we often talk about the weather on our different sides of the country. So I'm happy that it's 90 degrees here and the sun is out finally in New Jersey. And my house isn't ready for since it's so damn hot. But in terms of just being happy with that, I'm doing pretty good. When it comes to this team, not great, John. As the gift goes, not great, Bob. Not doing that hot. Having to watch this team and sitting there, and I find myself tuning out while the game is going on in terms of like background noise and stuff like that, because let's be honest, a lot of bad baseball, and we're going to get into all of it. And there's really a lot to cover. And I was saying to you before we went live before that I had a lot to say last week. And I just said to you also that I felt like listening back to it, I was a little bit in the middle on certain things, a little bit further, done with certain things as well. But I feel like this week I'm ready to, I don't want to say make declarations or like put a stamp on things, but I feel that the thoughts that I have are going to be a lot more clear this week. And I'm very interested to hear yours as well. So I'm happy that you're back and we get to play off of each other during this, extremely rough time in Metsland. So let's do it.
Yeah, it's been brutal. Shout out to everybody in the comments. We got Chris Ferraro. We got Mr. Nobody. We got Stephanie. We got Explosive Diarrhea. We got Aaron. We got Carlos Ramos. We got tons of folks. CP's in the house. Tone, Junior Swingman, Rael. I'm trying not to miss anybody. Brad, Jeff Cohen. I'm just going back through everybody. We got Darren. We got James Dowling, Keith Diaz. Tons of people
whole
here.
Crew. I love it.
And so many people are going to be chiming in. Just really quickly, I do want to address this one comment from Stephanie saying, guys, am I behind? In the beginning, they introduced each other. No, I think we just started a couple minutes late. So I don't think your stream is behind if that's what you're referring to. I think you're good. Oh, there's Patty in NYC, PB Patty. She goes, I'm here too, John. I see you. So many folks, and obviously there's more folks watching than are commenting, which is the case. Some people just want to, keep a low profile, stay in the background. We appreciate everybody who is in here. Look, there's a lot we can talk about. Ibby, look, Brad saying the pod title is so fitting. Brad, that's been the thing, right? That's our thing is that, Ibby, my partner characterized it when we first started this show. It's a Mets therapy session. Building character since 1962 has become the de facto rally cry of this show. Obviously, the show not been around since 1962. Neither have either of us been around since 1962. But, that's when the Mets came into the lives of people that we know and love, and then we inherited that fandom, and here we are. And, that's the one thing, with the two shows, and the other one Ibby's is not a part of. The other show I have here on Brella Sports is the goddamn Jets. And, you want to talk about, fitting titles, right? It's two franchises that walk mirrored paths, Ibby. I know you're not a Jets fan, which is, a large part of why you're not a part of that show. But, that's what it is, man. Like, it's these two franchises that, for all they do badly, they do a lot of stuff. They do some stuff well, and it just never seems to work out, right? Like, the Jets go out, they're a quarterback away, they make the move, they push their chips to the middle of the table, they get Aaron Rodgers, and I don't want to hear he's old, I don't want to hear it was the wrong move, I don't want to hear any of that, because in recent past, stuff like that in the NFL has worked. Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos, wins a Super Bowl. Tom Brady goes to the Bucks, wins a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford goes to the Rams, wins a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, the day he got traded to the Jets, better quarterback than Peyton Manning was at that point when he gets traded to the Broncos, right? He was at least as good as Tom Brady at that point in their careers when Tom Brady goes to the Bucks. Of course, Tom Brady has all the titles, and he was better than Matthew Stafford when Matthew Stafford came out here to LA, and it didn't work. And the reason why I bring all that stuff up is because no matter what the Mets do, it does not seem to work. We all have our ideas, and I argue with people constantly on how this team needs to be built, right? And it's not from a fandom perspective when I bring that. Obviously, I'm a fan. You're a fan. Everybody in the comments are fans. Everybody who watches, everybody who listens, we're all fans of this team. John Manconi joking around yesterday after McNeil hit the home run, saying like, oh, I'm in shambles. Joke. I say it all the time, Ibby. I want them to succeed. I don't take any joy in Brett Beatty being bad. I don't take any joy in Jeff McNeil being bad. The more players that are playing bad on the team, the worse the team is going to be. So I don't take any joy in guys not performing well. And I think sometimes you have to separate, and I understand it's hard because there's just one stream of consciousness on Twitter or whatever. It's hard to separate where your fandom is versus where you're, I don't know. I don't even want to say analyst hat because, like, I'm not a, I didn't play in the major leagues and I didn't work for a major league team. But, like, we all have our ideas. And I've got this platform that we've created and that Brella supports and Chop Sports before that. And so we all have our thoughts and our ideas. But the bottom line is, Ibby, everything that the Mets do comes up either just short of what we expect or way worse than that. And it doesn't matter who's pulling the strings. Now, do I trust David Stearns? I do. There's some comments in here. Here's Darren saying, I don't blame Stearns. For the most part, this is the team he inherited. The players themselves have to be held accountable. And then, Explosive Diarrhea said, shortly after, well, why do you trust Stearns? What has he proven? And, you can take that tact if you want to. I'm not going to take that tact, but you certainly could. It's just no matter who is making the decisions thus far, in the entirety of the Mets fandom going back to 1962, it's only really worked out like, 4 or 5 separate times. And I'm not even talking about in terms of winning a World Series. I just mean in terms of running a successful organization. It's only really worked out about 4 or 5 times in 60 goddamn years. And it's frustrating. I understand everybody's frustration. And people tell me I'm toxically positive. They say the same thing to you. And I think that's bullshit. We're trying to be realistic here. We might skew a little bit positive since the Cohen era has taken off, because I still do have faith that Cohen will put together a winner because all he does is win. I still have faith in Stearns because he's done stuff before where he's built a very competent organization. But when people are coming out here and saying they're frustrated, and even now, Ibby, to the point where there are things that I fundamentally disagree with, like trading Pete Alonso. I'm running out of ammunition to defend it, not because I am starting to lean the other way. It's just because everything has been so bad, I don't know how you can start to justify some of these things. Now, I will do my fucking damnedest because I think it's a bad baseball decision, but it's hard because it's hard to defend anything that the Mets do because, again, in their almost 60 years of existence, they've gotten it right 4 fucking times.
I want to make sure you were good.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
no,
I
it's
haven't,
no,
I
it's
haven't
fine.
been here for a week, so I had
No,
to go off. For a minute.
and I wanted to let you get it all out. And what I think since since I've really been able to watch this team and understand the game of baseball, they've been in the playoffs like what 6 times, maybe 7 times, maybe since I've been able to truly understand the game itself. Look, it's not good right now, and I understand everyone that's upset. I spoke on it last week, and my biggest thing with this is, well, number one, when we first started this show, which was right at the birth of the Cohen era, I said that Mets fans needed to be patient, but I also said to you, and I wish we could go back into the archives to pull this up, but I said to you that when this money showed up, that a lot of Mets fans were going to forget where they came from, if you will, and they were going to think that they were just going to buy everything. And this is a shout out to Carson over at Mets Weekly, because he's been doing a lot of work on Twitter and putting things out. People giving him shit when it comes to the failures, quote unquote failures of Stearns and Cohen when it comes to said money. And it's like, well, you can have all the money in the world, but you need to build something in order to have players want to come to it. Otherwise, you're paying double that. And to a point that I made to Ant Rivera over at Subway to Shea during one of his streams, that's a point where you're paying a guy double, and if it fails, well, he's just going to start, coasting, if you will, because, well, screw it, it's not working, but at least I got my money. It's all like, it takes time. So in no way is the negativity towards Stearns proper when it comes to this entire situation, because let's be honest, the stuff that he decided to put his hands on this offseason are the only things that are working. That's it. He wanted to retool and fix the bullpen. He did it. He wanted to get the most he could out of starting pitching. Guess what? He's done it. What is failing on this team? The stuff he kind of left and said, you know what? I'm going to let it be. This should be able to perform. And guess what? It's not. It's bad baseball all around. The offense is bad all around. And we'll get to this in a little bit, but I did throw a poll into the chat, and there's 30 votes on it right now. And it's a simple question. We can come back to it when we want to, but it was just to get an idea of the vibe of everyone in terms of now versus the beginning of the season. And that question was a simple one. And that was, will Pete Alonso be dealt at the deadline? And I think both of us were very adamant at the beginning in saying that he was not, because we thought this team would play a little bit better baseball, and that his power is needed on this team. Because you saw before he hit the homer today, you saw prior to that, since he had his last home run, the lack of power on this team is deafening. Like it's like, it makes you like, holy shit, there's no power here. Now you remove that, and I implore you to tell me, well, where are you getting said power from? Now
There isn't any. Just to be clear, there is none.
There is no power in this organization. Now,
Correct.
There's
one guy. I'm sorry. There's one guy who profiles, and we know profiling in the minor leagues isn't everything, right? Because some guys learn to develop power late. Some guys, you don't expect
Swing
it. They come out of
changes.
nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Some guys have sneaky pop or whatever the case may be. And some guys who profile as big power hitters never really put it all together. You look at a guy like Mike Jacobs, who we traded for Carlos Delgado, right? Yeah. Had a couple big power years. I know that's a different era of baseball, but he came up as a big power prospect, but was never really that good of a hitter, all in all. And look, he got us Carlos Delgado. That's wonderful off of, I think, a stretch where he hit like a home run in 7 straight games or something ridiculous at the end of that season. But maybe there's one guy in the minors right now, one who profiles as a power hitter. He also strikes out a ton. He walks a ton. That's Ryan Clifford. He's also at least 2 years away. So when people are so quick to say, let's get Pete out of here, that's my point is, and then what?
And that's why it's so hard, because we have to allow that idea to materialize. It's hard to think ahead because you don't know what can happen. You don't want to assume certain things when it comes to certain players. And to just look at the poll at the moment, there's 34 votes. And if you haven't voted yet, please make sure that you do. If you're over on the Twitter side, we're over 100 people right now watching. If you're over on the Twitter side, head on over to the YouTube side, jump in and put your vote in. 34 votes at the moment. Will Pete Alonso be dealt at the deadline? 71% say yes, while 29% 90% say no. And look, I understand why they're saying it. This team is where they are. They want to get something for him, and they're probably having reservations about keeping him, because that brings up the following question, which I also put into our community tab on our YouTube page, asking, do you want this team to, quote unquote, rebuild? Do you want him to tear everything down? Yes, no, maybe. And what I ended up getting on that one, which is over 30 votes as well, 39% say yes, tear it down. 23% said no, don't. 29% said maybe. And 10% said leave me alone, the Rangers are playing. So that, I had to put that as an option just for the Rangers fans and to pop CP. But all of that being said, it's, John, I'm to the point, for me at least, when it comes to this entire conversation and the quote unquote core, I'm so fucking tired of that word. I really am. But the core, since this will probably be the last day we can actually, maybe we can retire it after today. But when it comes to the main group of people on this team, that's what's failing at the moment. So I understand people say break it up, but the problem is when you say that, I don't think you realize that breaking up the core is essentially just removing two pieces, and really one piece, in my opinion, because I don't consider Jeff McNeil part of said core, but they want to because of the contract and how long he's been here. Fine. Sure. I said it last week. If Jeff McNeil is in your quote unquote core, then by all means get rid of him and change your core. You remove Pete Alonso, I have to see what you're going to do moving forward, but I have a hard time with how things have gone in terms of just needing to change things to disagree with people. I still say that, and I still stand by this, I don't think Pete Alonso is part of the problem, because, again, if you allowed him to just be what he's supposed to be, it's not a problem at all. It's not. But to Ant Rivera's point, who's in the chat, shout out to you, Ant, and Subway to Shay, he said that this roster was going to get Pete Alonso traded, or you're going to watch Pete Alonso walk away. And I think that's kind of where I'm feeling right now, mainly because in general, with where this team is, I am to the point, May 22nd, 2024, I understand what this team was supposed to be coming into this season. I said it 1,000 times, but it's not playing the way I thought it would within those margins. 2 weeks ago, me and you talked about why we were enjoying what we were watching, because it was like, we're seeing some better baseball. It's a lot better than last year. In 2 weeks' time,
it's changed. They're as unwatchable as they were last year.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that is where it kills me, because I'm like, I don't want to be in the same spot I was last year, where we were coming on this show every single week, sometimes twice a week, and saying, it's going to switch. It's going to switch. It's going to switch. And say, give it time. Give it time. Give it time. Like, I can only do that so much. The fact that this team, in general, since September of 22, I want to say, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think they're like 11 games under 500 since September of 22. So I'm to the point where I watch this team and I go, they have zero heart. They don't play with any heart. They have no pulse. There's no pulse.
No, there isn't.
There isn't. And that's why it's so difficult for everyone to watch, because you're basically leading yourself into the lion's den when you sit on your couch or you go to the stadium every day, every week, whatever you do, you walk in and you're basically getting eaten alive. That's what it feels like as a fan right now. That's what it is. Does.
And look, everybody, keep those comments coming in. And,
please keep coming.
You know, Ibby, this is something that we talked about. We're going to get into the comments here in a second. This is something that we talked about during the 5-game losing streak to start the season. I think it was on that episode. I said, you can't have a team where your two of your 3 best players or 2 of your 4 best players, whatever, are known for their smiles. Francisco Lindor, known for his smile. Brandon Nimmo, known for his smile. Pete Alonso, more of an aw shucks kind of guy. I kind of look at him as like an Eli Manning type of player. You know what I mean? Goes out there, does what he does, a little goofy, a little affable, you know, but no real fire under him. You know, you need some guys. And look, I'm not trying to have a Javi Baez conversation. That's why I always liked a guy like Javi Baez. I want to wave at the Yankees. Fuck them. I want to get into a fight with Amir Garrett. Fuck them. Sometimes you need those guys. That's why Marcus Stroman, And again, I don't want to turn this into a Strowman conversation. Strowman was an important part of this team because he was a different personality. Syndergaard was a different part of this team because he was a good part of this team because he was a different personality. Harvey, a good part of this team because he was a different personality. And like I said on that show, I will say on this show, I am not advocating for them to bring any of those guys back, or I'm not saying, oh man, we should have kept them. Syndergaard's out of baseball. Javi Baez has never been the same. Matt Harvey's out of baseball. Strowman's been a little up, a little down. He's with the Yankees now. It doesn't matter. I just mean you need some guys with some fucking grit. Where is it? Where is it? Tommy Pham had it. Tommy Pham ain't here no more. I think
that really sorry to cut you off. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
But like to point there with the Tommy Pham thing, like you see you don't really notice it, right?
Right as I said it.
You don't really notice it when it's in that moment because you're like, oh, Tommy Pham, he's a solid player and this and that, and he leaves and all the stuff that happened with him, whatever, and he leaves, and now you look at this team and you go, God damn. Like he's a different type of cat, but he is the type of player like, I want that fuck you energy. Like I need that on this team because sometimes you have to have someone be that bad guy, be that villain, be that no nonsense type. And there's one thing I did want to bring up real quick before I forget it.
Hold on, before we change the topic really quick. Explosive and Stephanie both saying about having Tommy Pham on the team last year. Yes, Tommy Pham was on the team last year, and we didn't
put a light on it though.
But he brought something different. See, that then you have to separate what they bring in terms of mentality versus what they bring in terms of on-field production. Now, Tommy Pham was way productive for us, enough so that we were able to flip him at the deadline and get a piece back. And he's been very productive. Kudos to him since he got to the White Sox. He didn't even take any at-bats in spring training. He just got on the team and he started hitting. So it's not to slight him. It's just that what I'm saying is that he's not a good enough baseball player to carry a team. It's just you need a little bit more of that mentality in some of your stars. You need a little bit more of that mentality from people who are supposed to be here. And again, this is not to turn it into a Tommy Pham conversation like he's the next second coming of whatever. Like, Stephanie's saying, I don't think he's a New York player. It doesn't matter. You need some guys with some balls.
When it comes to
toughness, there has not been toughness on this team in a long time. Max Scherzer was tough, and then you know what? Max Scherzer turned into a fucking pumpkin when it mattered the most. And it doesn't, because they say this all the time, like you can only be a leader if you're actually producing on the field. Well, Max Scherzer being a fucking bulldog 8 years ago with the Washington Nationals doesn't matter the 2022 and the 2023 Mets. You got to be a bulldog and you got to be that player now. He can't be like, oh yeah, when I was winning Cy Youngs for a division rival 6 years ago, who gives a fuck? Nobody cares.
And and this is why stuff like this takes time to create and build something, because someone like Pham and that type of attitude is something that you want to be your legit fourth outfielder off the bench type, carries fire when he's in the game and things of that nature. But it's also talent. And this team, and this is what I said last week, that I still feel that this is proper, where I said that, the hard thing to do with this entire thing is pinpointing what the real problem is. And I said this to Aunt Rivera in a conversation that we were having on the side. And I said, it's as if we're trying to put together a puzzle of the sky or the ocean. And it's hard to do because every piece kind of looks the same and you're trying to put together and you can't figure it out. But there's one thing that to bring this all home in terms of talent and where we are right now. And I have to give out a shout out because I thought the Sunday live stream for Carson and the guys over at Mets Weekly was awesome. And I loved every minute of it. And I got Carson.
Shout out to Carson. I'm going to be on the show tomorrow with him.
I'm going to try to be on.
I know you're going to try, but I'm already committed. So if you want more of this conversation, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of it with myself and Carson and the rest of his crew. I'm going to be there, and Ibby's going to try to be there. So tune in tomorrow if you want to check that out. They're also live on YouTube and stuff. The thing
that they said when it comes to the talent, and it really hit hard for me. Really hit hard because it was kind of said in passing too, and it kind of spun off into a little bit of a conversation. But Carson said, he goes, look at this lineup, right? As it is right now. Look at this lineup. Now, if this lineup, however you want to put it, whatever machination of wherever someone, Lindor's leading off, Nimmo's batting third, what doesn't matter. Okay. He said, if this team faces Chris Sale, if this team faces Paul Skeens, if this team faces anyone from the Mariners, if this team faces anyone that has hard, legit stuff with big break and sweep, do you think this team can actually get a hit? And you've watched it to this point, and they brought up Aaron Nola because Nola had the 4-hit shutout against this team, and his stuff has been declining. So when you have this team, and we've seen it a lot more this year where they are struggling big time against legit starting pitching, they're getting handled by guys like Xavier Curry. But when you face someone like, I said it would be hilarious to see Jeff McNeil going up there against a 98-mile-an-hour splinker from Paul Skeens. Like, he's not going to fucking touch that.
No, he
won't. Who in this lineup, no matter, like, who in this lineup is going to do it? And that shows you.
You know what's fucked up? There's, you know who the guy I have the most faith in touching that? There's two people. One is based largely on track record of just being such a great student of hitting, and you all know who I'm talking about. That's JD Martinez. I know he's been a little up, he's been a little down. I mean, he's hitting over 300. The power hasn't exactly been there, but I think he's hitting over 300 runners in scoring position too. Like, JD Martinez has been as advertised. He's just been a little sluggish. And also, by the way, power is down across the board. It'd be across Major League Baseball. So It's not just the Mets problem. And Gary brought it up on the broadcast today. The Mets have hit plenty of home runs. The reason why their OPS is lacking is because they don't hit a lot of other extra base hits. I think they have more home runs than doubles as a team, and they have one triple, and that belongs to Brandon Nimmo. So their OPS is down, but their home run production is up. Anyway, to answer your question, outside of JD Martinez, there's one person that I might say could hit those pitchers that you're talking about, and it's DJ Stewart. And the reason why I say it's DJ Stewart is because DJ Stewart has the approach that works. DJ Stewart has the approach. And look, again, Carson's credit. He's been saying this for months. Gary Cohen said it again on the broadcast today. He's mini Schwarber. He has not had the success of Schwarber, and he probably never will, right? But he goes up there, and he doesn't swing at bad pitches most of the time. He waits for his pitch, and then he swings to hit it 2 fucking miles. So those are the kinds of guys that you need. That's the kind of player that you're lacking right now in the Mets lineup. You need more people with the mentality, I think, of DJ Stewart, because there's a passiveness of this lineup. I need everything to be perfect. I'm going to try to slap the ball. I'm going to do or because this will help some of the other people understand it. There are some people who are out there just saying, I'm going to sell out and hit a home run. Doesn't matter where the ball is. That's not what I'm saying DJ Stewart is doing. DJ Stewart is looking for a pitch down the middle and then swinging at it and trying to hit it hard. He's not chasing a ball that's cutting away from it. He's not chasing a ball in the dirt. You know, you want to talk about some of Alonso's problems? That's some of Alonso's problems. If Alonso would just stay in the strike zone, he would fucking hammer pitches. So, you know, you talk about guys with plus stuff. One of the ways you combat that is with plus stuff as a hitter, right? Great bat speed or whatever the case may be, a great eye, whatever. But you also have to have the discipline, and discipline doesn't necessarily mean trying to get walks. Discipline means, is it a strike that I can do damage with? I hate to say it, it's the Kevin Long approach to hitting. And it fucking worked for Daniel Murphy. And I think it would work for more players on this team.
Shout out to Matthew Brownstein, as always. Love when he comes with the stats on Twitter to further home the point that John was making. The lowest team OPS with runners on base and less than 2 outs this season. The Blue Jays are the lowest at 614, followed by the Red Sox at 640, the Twins at 662, the White Sox at 670, and our New York Mets at 681. Now, mind you, I think I got these stats 2 days ago, so these numbers are probably a little bit lower now. So either way, call it an even 680. 680 OPS with runners on base and less than 2 outs this season. Far from ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to jump back into the comments because there's so many coming in, and some of these are from a while ago, but I just want to touch on them. Aaron, who maybe is now watching the Rangers, but shout out to Aaron, saying, in Stearns we trust. That's from a bit ago. Darren, thank you, saying, shout out to John and Ibby for the incredible work they do. Like and subscribe to Till Mets Do Us Part. We appreciate that. Plus, that gets the plug of please subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that stuff. This is a good one from Tone. The Stearns slander is absolutely disgusting. You have to reserve judgment on Stearns till the end of next year. It's almost like no one has listened to a word he said. It's good points all around. Yes. This is a good counter to that in a way from Aunt Rivera. Shout out Subway to Shay. I trust Stearns, but if he somehow doesn't get this right and turn this around, I don't know if I'll ever believe again. And I understand that sentiment. I do because
Stearns is the guy.
Stearns is the guy. Stearns and Cohen, right. Stearns and Cohen. So I understand that, I want to say that's a bit defeatist, but I can't because Ant is a great fan. He's got a level head, and I understand that sentiment because I opened the show talking about no matter what the Mets do, it turns to shit, right? Tampa Bay gets somebody, turns to gold. They've got the Midas touch. Whatever the opposite of that is, that's what the Mets have. So, I can't say that that's inaccurate. Rosie saying Stearns inherited a complete mess from Epler. Very true. Also, Cohen inherited an even worse mess from the Wilpons. I don't want to hear like Brandon Tierney today. This is year 4. Da 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 da. Oh, you think you just turn this shit around? You think you just turn it around with no fucking issues when you couldn't get a real GM for 4 fucking seasons? Blow it out your ass, you fucking asshole. Anyway, I hope it doesn't take 5 years to fix, but that's just the reality of it. Sorry, I'm hot today.
It's okay. It's okay.
But I do want to take this back for a second to some of these conversations about the core, Ibby, if we can.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Because here's my point, right? There's a couple of conversations, couple of comments that go along with it. Here's Chris. Maybe we need more guys that hit 20 to 30 rather than one that hits 40 to 50, as much as I love Pete. The counter to that is Keith Diaz saying Pete is not the problem, but he helps the long-term solution. Now, I don't know if he means he helps the long-term solution in terms of trying to get him out of here. In other words, if you trade him, you can recoup assets. Maybe I would say Pete helps the long-term solution in a different way. And I have said this on Twitter. So for everybody who follows me and argued with me there, I'm sorry for reiterating it. But people who don't or may have missed it, I'm just going to say this. Pete Alonso, for his career, averages 45 home runs and 116 RBI. He did that when he was hitting 260 early in his career. He does that when he's hitting 220 at this point in his career. So if you want to tell me that at 220, he's not a productive hitter, you're wrong, because he's still hitting home runs and he's still knocking in runs, the things that he is supposed to do, period. The reason why, Ibby, I have a hard time moving on from Alonso is because I don't know how you replace that production. How many people in the league hit 45 and 116? Now, how many of those people are worse than Pete Alonso in terms of an overall player? Most of them are. Like, you look at a guy like Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber can't play a position. Now, Kyle Schwarber might be more clutch if that's a metric that you want to use. I understand that. But Kyle Schwarber is objectively not as good of an overall player as Pete Alonso is, because Pete Alonso, for everybody who wants to shit talk his defense, I would say he's a slightly below average to average first baseman. I don't think he's ever going to win a Gold Glove, but he's not over there being fucking terrible. Okay, he actually helps you on defense sometimes. Kyle Schwarber is a negative on defense. Kyle Schwarber still got fucking paid. If you let Pete Alonso go, you've got to pay somebody to make up for that production. Now, if you want to get better than Pete Alonso, that's fine. You should get better than Pete Alonso. But Ibby, the people who hit 40 home runs and over 100 RBIs that are better than Pete Alonso are all the best fucking players in baseball. Aaron Judge, Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson, Mookie Betts. Like, pick your people. That's who we're talking about. Shohei Ohtani. They're the best players in the sport. They also don't grow on trees. they're going to cost you $300 million, $400 million. Also, where's the blueprint? When you look at how other teams are built that have good offenses, how many players do the Braves have that can hit 40 home runs? I would say 4.
Yeah.
They've got Matt
That's the whole
Olson.
lineup,
They've got Ronald Acuna. They've got Ozzie Albies. They have Austin Riley. And maybe he's a piece of shit, but maybe Marcelo Zuna. I don't think he'll hit 40, but he could. He's done it in the past.
Michael Harris is good enough to hit 30 too.
Yeah,
so they got a lot of people.
How many people? We all made fun of the Philadelphia Phillies. What are they doing signing Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos? You don't build a team like that. I think with a win today, they have the best record in baseball. They're the fastest team to 34-11 since the Seattle Mariners team that won 116 ball games or whatever the fuck they won. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is how you build a team. Look at how many people the Dodgers have that can hit 40 home runs. You need guys with power. And for everybody who countered that by saying, well, the Braves let Freeman go and they replaced him with Matt Olson. Okay, well, is there Matt Olson? Is there Matt Olson to go get right now? I don't know. I mean, but I don't see one. I don't see a guy who's readily available on a bad team that you're going to go be able to snatch up and plug in immediately. And what happens, Ibby? What happens if you say, I've had enough of Pete Alonso. I'm going all in on Juan Soto. And Juan Soto goes back to the Yankees. And then Pete Alonso signs with the Cubs. And I've seen people in the comments, Mark Vientos can probably hit a lot of home runs. Probably. Let's see him do it. Alvarez, I think Alvarez could be a 35 home run bat. At catcher, that would be wonderful. But he has to do it first. I think Mauricio can hit a lot of home runs. How many that is, I have no idea if it's 25 or 35. I also don't know if he'll ever make enough contact to hit that much. So I don't know. Where are you getting the power from? Where does it come from? And I understand, home runs don't win games. They do, though. They do. Power wins baseball games. Power pitching, power hitting. That's how you win 9 times out of 10 in 2024. It's not 1974. It's 2024. Big playoff games, they get turned on their ear by home runs more often than not.
Do you think, and this is me just throwing another question to you to end up finishing your point. Do you think, because I know the comp with Schwarber and things said there, and we'll get to some of the comments because there's a lot of good ones too. We start them off. But Schwarber signed for what he is at 4 years and whatever it was, $78 million to basically be a DH or a butcher in the field if they decide to put him out there. But he hits a lot of home runs for being a 200 or sub 200 hitter. Mm-hmm. Plugs in nicely into that lineup at that number. Now, I say to you this, Pete Alonso, I know we don't care about money and people should stop caring about money, but it's still part of the overall math when it comes to constructing a team. So Pete Alonso is better defensively than Kyle Schwarber. How much better? That's up for debate based off of the metrics or what have you. Okay. Now,
he also played different positions.
But yes.
I don't know how good Schwarber would be if he played first base. He's fucking terrible in left field. But
right.
Yeah.
But if we look at it and say, okay, if he got $78 million and Pete Alonso reportedly turned down a 7-year deal of $158 million to then drop his agent and move to Scott Boras, which signifies he thinks he can get more money either out of the Mets or from elsewhere. Is Pete Alonso worth that much in terms of cash in this math in comparison to what Kyle Schwarber was? So is Pete's defense at 30 years old moving forward on, say, 5, 6, 7-year deal? I've been saying I think Pete's going to get humbled regardless in free agency.
The year he's having, yes. I mean, he is having a down year by his standards, sure.
So do you think, all things considered, and again, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback this, but 7 years, 158, is that or was that improper for Pete to turn down And is he going to end up settling for less? And would he have the balls, and Scott Boras have the balls, to go back to the Mets and settle for less? That's why I think this whole thing becomes that much more interesting, because I don't think that that's something that a Boras client would do.
Well, here's the thing, Ibby. A lot of things were made of that leaked report that he turned down, and they're like, that's average. That puts him in the Freeman and Olsen and conversation and da. My rebuttal to that was, he's a Boras client. Boras clients don't sign extensions unless they are given an extension offer that is way above market value. That deal is, I would say, slightly below market value, because even though it's right along with Goldschmidt and Olsen and Freeman, and you can argue that they're all better players than Alonso, it is less money today because they all signed those deals at least a couple years ago.
Right.
So you want to try to reset the market a little bit. And I do think, with defense to Pete Alonso, he is good enough to reset the market a little bit, because he's hit more home runs than anybody in the fucking sport since 2019. He has more RBIs than anybody in fucking baseball than 2019. So I think it's okay to say he might want a little bit more than those guys. Is he a better overall player than any of them? No, he's not. But that brings me to my other point that I tweeted out today. Some fans need to realize that salaries are supply and demand. Salaries are an indication of where your market value is at the time that you are a free agent. And if one owner decides he wants to go balls to the wall, it resets and throws off the whole fucking market.
Yep.
So everybody who got on Steve Cohen today in my mentions all over the place, oh, well, Steve Cohen decided he was going to pay Lindor $100 million more than he deserved. Two questions for you. Steve Cohen comes in his first year in ownership, says, I'm different than the Wilpons. I'm going to go trade for a star. And Lindor was a star. Don't argue with me that he wasn't. He goes out, he trades for him, and then he doesn't extend him, and Lindor leaves. And you traded 4 prospects for him. Now, only one of them is really any good. That's Andres Jimenez, whatever. But you traded 4 prospects for him. Your whole thing as Steve Cohen is, I'm different than the Wilpons. And you trade 4 prospects for a guy and don't sign him. That's a PR fucking disaster. Everybody wanted Lindor signed. Every fucking body wanted Lindor signed. I don't care who you are. Don't Monday morning quarterback it now.
It's true.
The other side of it is, before we signed Lindor to that extension, Ibby, who signed a big-time extension out in San Diego?
That would be Fernando Tatis Jr.
And what position was he playing at the time he signed that extension?
Shortstop.
Okay, so who really reset the market and threw it out of whack?
The all-in San Diego Padres.
Correct. They fucked up baseball just the way they've been fucking up baseball. I've said on this show, you don't want to do what they're doing, but they did it. And so we had no choice. And to everybody who's like, well, you just wait a year. You just wait a year and you could have had your pick of the shortstops. Yeah, okay, fine. But anybody can say that at any point. You want a fucking time machine? Go back in a time machine and sign Corey Seager. We don't have that. Everybody wanted Lindor signed. And the money he is making, I can't say this enough, is irrelevant. Money that players make is only relevant when they become unplayable. What Chris Davis made was insane because he couldn't hit, period. I know Lindor's batting average isn't great, but if you look at his peripheral stats, he has been productive. Has he been streakier than you would like? Yes, I'll admit that. But if I admit that, everybody who's shitting on him needs to also admit that he's been getting killed on his batting average on balls in play and his expected batting average. He's been unlucky too. So I don't understand why you're so quick to want to replace all these players. And the last thing I'll say, I'm sorry I'm ranting.
It's okay.
But the last thing I'll say is, this is the cost of doing business when you are a team owned by a rich owner in a big market. You have to overpay sometimes for players who are on their second contracts to get them to come here, because baseball is fucked up and nobody makes any goddamn money until they're 28 years old, even though all the best players are in their early 20s now. That's just how it is. You have to be able to deal with it, but you can't cast them all aside. I had somebody arguing with me that the Mets should eat half of Francisco Lindor's contract to trade him. You're going to eat 15, 16, 17 million dollars for the next 7 fucking years? And you think that's going to make you better? What are we talking about? What are we doing? It's like nobody's ever watched baseball before.
I've been saying it, and I'm going to keep on saying it, that I don't think that, or I should say I believe that this team can win with Francisco Lindor and what he does. And I think I said this to Aunt Rivera. I don't know if I said it last week on the show, but when it comes to Lindor, do I honestly feel that he white knuckles it sometimes? Do I feel like he presses a lot? Do I think that, the burden of a contract is something that exists? Sure, because you're expected to be things. But at the same time, I also said that, I would take Francisco Lindor in a relaxed approach and then signing some other players that alleviate things. So all in all, everyone does well. But if I say something like that, it then becomes, well, then, this guy's not worth the contract. You wasted money and blah, 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 blah. It's like, again, guys, it's monopoly money. I don't care in that sense. But, I just think that better players are needed throughout, and people can talk. And again, this brings it back to the whole tear down the core thing. It's like, you can't tear down this core with how it's constructed. You are keeping Brandon Nimmo. You are keeping Francisco Lindor. You can win with those two players. If you're changing the core, your core, someone else's core, quote unquote, and I put the quotes on it because Jeff McNeil's in it. You want to lose Jeff McNeil somehow? Go ahead. You want to lose Pete Alonso? Show me how you're replacing it, and I'll listen. But if that's what you're doing, that's what your idea of changing said core is, because it's one thing to do it one off season to try and one season, I should say, to try and quicken your build in terms of your farm, to eat a lot of money and say, it's a short term and this and that. It's one thing when it's a year or two, when you're eating money on Scherzer, you're eating money on Verlander, and you're flipping them for prospects. It's another thing to be eating excess of, like you said, 15, 16, 17 million dollars a season for 5, 6, 7 seasons on a given player to play for someone else. It's not going to happen. Francisco Lindor is here. I want him to be here. Brandon Nimmo is here. I want him to be here. Honestly, because I think Brandon Nimmo is the only one with a pulse right now. I said no one has a pulse before. Brandon Nimmo, in my opinion, is the only guy with a pulse at the moment, at least. So I think you can win with those players. But when it comes to this change, the interesting thing is going to be how they navigate, because let's be honest here. Let's really, really be honest, so that we can go into the break, wherever you want to do. If you lose Pete Alonso and you somehow get rid of Jeff McNeil and you somehow try your best to rework the back end of this lineup however you want, through trades, through signings, okay. You lose Pete Alonso, he goes somewhere else, okay. Juan Soto re-signs with the Yankees or goes to someone else. Okay, I want you to look at the rest of the free agent market, and I want you to tell me, what exactly is this team doing to better themselves?
Nothing.
What is this team doing in terms of let's make up for it and get a bunch of 20 home run bats? Where's it coming from?
You could overpay for Alex Bregman. You could overpay for him, and hope to God that he's not hooked, and hope to God that he can hit home runs outside of the fucking bandbox. Why would you not pay, if you're going to pay a 31-year-old, why would you not pay the 31-year-old that's already been here, that's hit the home runs and driven in the runs, that plays first base, a lesser position than Bregman? How much longer is Bregman going to be able to play third base? Well, you're going to pay Bregman more than you got to pay Alonso, and then in 2 years you got to hope that Bregman can become a first baseman, and you got to hope he can still hit when you have Pete Alonso right fucking here, right now. That's what you're looking at. You're looking right down the barrel of it.
To Hector here saying, honest question, do you guys think it's possible to make this team a winning team contributing to try and build around this core? Guess I was so Hector, when it comes to like the core, again, I think that Brandon Nimmo belongs here. I think Francisco Lindor belongs here. Yes, I do. If you're going to rework things, it's going to come from the other players because of the contract situations. That's simple. But like the whole thing I'm saying is, and I can throw this back to you as well, John, because I talked about it last week when it comes to Stern's approach about how you might potentially change things. Do you think, and this could be John's answer when it comes to the quote unquote core, do you think that David Stearns is better served getting out from McNeil, letting Alonso walk, retooling the back end however he wants to through signings and trades, however he wants to? Nimmo and Lindor are here. Okay. Do you think that it's proper to go that route and build that way? Or do you think Stearns should double down? Really, at this point, it would be then tripling down on Pete Alonso, essentially, keeping him and then adding more on top and saying that I believe that, this group can win. I just have to add more to it. Do you think that that's proper, or do you think that they should, go the other route and retool everything else around the likes of Lindor and Nimmo?
Here's my comment on that. I hope Jeff McNeil hits the way the way people think he can hit, the way he hit today. I don't care what he does. I want Jeff McNeil to hit. I want Starling Marte to continue to hit. You want to talk about eating some money? That's where I would eat some money. Starling Marte has been a contributor, but Starling Marte is no longer the guy that he was when we signed him. He's taken a step back defensively, and he's not really good enough anymore.
He's disengaged.
I agree.
That's the way it comes across.
I also think that the Mets are going to be better with an outfield that has, Tyrone Taylor out there, that has more DJ Stewart out there, that has a little bit more mix and match.
Got to get younger.
But for right now, I think those bats all give you upside. And I don't think Marte gives you any upside. We're seeing the best Marte can be right now, period. He's been an okay contributor, which is great considering how far off he was last year with the double groin surgery and how bad he was. Those guys need to get traded. Those guys you would eat money for. After that, Ibby, and this is something I've said, and again, I'm not saying you have to put all your eggs in the Juan Soto basket, because I think the fact that he is successful with the Yankees is a real problem. I think the Yankees are going to try like hell to keep them. Well, do I think he's going to sign an extension with them? I do not. The report came out that he turned down 7 contract extensions since he turned down the one in Washington, the first one. So he is going to continue to turn down extensions. He's not going to be extended at this point. He's trying to break the bank. He's trying to go for big money. Whether that's with the Yankees, whether that's with the Mets, or whether that's with somebody else, it remains to be seen. But Ibby, if you want to tell me how teams like a team run by a guy like Steve Cohen in a market like New York compete, they sign Pete Alonso and they sign Juan Soto. That's what they do. That's how you win. Everybody's saying Lindor's not good enough. Alonso's not good enough. Nimmo's not good enough. They need an elite player. Juan Soto's an elite player. Sign him, not to replace Alonso. Sign him to bat third. Sign him. Add him into the mix. Go get a player of that ilk. That's what you need. And you know what? For everybody who says, oh, you can't have that many people taking up that much money. Here, Chris Ferraro, as soon as I said it, yes, you sign both and don't care about the money. You shouldn't. It's not your money. It doesn't fucking matter. There are some players you break the bank for. Juan Soto is one of those players. I've said that for 4 years. He's the closest thing we're going to see in the modern era to Ted Williams. That's how good he is. So you go and you get both of them. And if you have so much faith that everybody has, because everybody who wants to get rid of Alonso, everybody that wants to get rid of Lindor, what do they say? Vientos can do this. Jet Williams can do that. Acuna can do this. Drew Gilbert can do that. We don't know, right? But if you have that, people keep flipping the script on us, right? Like, oh, well, this core's not good enough. This core's not good enough. Well, I'll bring it back on them. If you think these prospects are so good, then you can sign Soto and Alonso. You can afford to pay Alonso, Soto, Nimmo, and Lindor the money that they're being paid, and you hope that one or two of those other prospects are as good as Alvarez is in their respective positions, because they're not going to be making any money for a long time. And that's how you offset it. Because yes, Mr. Nobody, we still need a superstar player. And to answer this question before we head into the break, Douglas saying, will Soto come here? Yamamoto used the Mets just like every other high, end free agent will. The one reason why I think, I said already, him playing on the Yankees is a problem. I think the Yankees are going to want to keep him. But Soto has turned down a reported 7 contract extensions. Do you know why? Because he wants to hit the open market, and Soto wants to get fucking paid.
He wants big money.
Period.
And it doesn't help. It doesn't help, especially today, how Hal Steinbrenner came out and said how, the financial stature of the Yankees post 2024 is not conducive to, being smart, if you will. Now, I don't know if that is a precursor for anything. I'm not going to read too much into anything because, again, you're the New York fucking Yankees. You should not let Juan Soto leave the building. So, again, I've been talking about Soto when it comes to this show and the Mets in general in, like, the fantasy land aspect. But for me, I honestly think that with where this team is, and call this what you will, and I love Pete Alonso, but when you asked me the question weeks ago, who would you rather have, Pete Alonso or Juan Soto, I said definitively 10 times out of 10, I will take Juan Soto. Now, like, it comes down to it where it's like, I see David Stearns and what he's been doing with this team so far and what he's done with teams in the past. And I look at it and I go, this team needs to get younger. This team needs to get faster. This team needs to just get overall better, and landing someone of a large stature that clearly can handle said spotlight. And you can see that Soto's doing that for the Yanks right now. So I would not be shocked if it was, again, I think it's a far cry and a far shot, but if it was on the table, I think that they would opt to let Pete walk and sign Soto and then build from there with Soto, Lindor, Nimmo, and then letting the kids pitch and figuring out. And like, that's the way I think it would end up going. If we're talking about changing the identity, changing the quote unquote core of what it was, and breaking things up from the fact that this team has been 10 plus games under 500 since September of 22, if we're trying to quote unquote pinpoint something that is the issue.
Yeah, look, and a lot of people are saying this, and it's true, right? The Juan Soto pipe dream is hilarious. That man ain't going nowhere. I don't care what Hal Steinbrenner says.
And yeah, Hector, you might be right. You might be right.
You're all probably right.
And I prefaced with that. Yeah.
So did I. And so you're all probably right. Stephanie said it. Hector said it. We're just using him as the example because everybody starts the Pete Alonso conversation with, let's get better than him. Okay, how do you get better than him? You go get a player who is objectively better than him. There's one available, Ibby, or right now who is going to be available, and that's Juan Soto. It's the same conversation. And again, I think you need both to be successful. But if you're telling me I have to pick one, I love Pete, but of course I'm going to pick Juan Soto. Juan Soto is an overall better player. It's the same conversation we had a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Bryce Harper. To me, Bryce Harper is the one who got away. If Steve Cohen bought the team 1 year earlier than he did, Bryce Harper would be a Met. Now, the trade-off is that would have probably been the big splash, and we don't get Lindor. And we would not have Lindor, who I really love. But I like Bryce Harper better. I think Bryce Harper is a better player than Lindor, so I would rather have him. But I'm not going to look a gift shark in the mouth, or gift horse in the mouth, excuse me. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth when I have Lindor here on this team. People clamored for superstars. This is how you do it. Sometimes you have to overpay. Sometimes you have to trade. Sometimes you have to, this is the cost of doing business when you're operating with these players. Yeah, Gift Shark. It's actually because I was just watching an episode of Rick and Morty where Rick does a play on words and he says, "Don't jump a gift shark in the mouth," because it's all about jumping the shark and looking a gift horse in the mouth. And so I just had that in my head. But you know what? I'm sticking with it. Gift shark. I know it's gift horse, but thank you for Eyes on the Inside for pointing that out.
If there's one thing, and I see Keith put it in it because he's going to do a show on it tomorrow, and I don't want to take any of his steam away from him, but he's saying there's a way to not sign Soto and to do a quick fix, and he's going to talk about it on his show, and I'll be tuned in for that. But in all honesty, like, if you're not, like, I'm at the point where it's like, if Juan Soto is a pipe dream, and I'm with you, Hector, I think it is. If that's not happening, and you're letting Pete go potentially, and you're going to do, like, at that point, I don't want a quick fix at that point. It's like you have these guys and you're going to do your best to piece it together and try to be a competitive, scrappy type team. But I don't want you to, like, at that point, I don't want Alex Bregman. I don't want these, because if Alex Bregman came here at 31 years old to play third base, he'd hit 12 home runs. Like, I see it already. There's no Crawford boxes. He's not going to be the same player.
I got to be honest with you, Ibby. If you don't, I'll say this right now. If you don't intend to sign Pete and so if you don't intend to try, because you can't, they have free will to sign whatever they want. If you don't intend to sign Pete and Soto, then don't give me either one of them. Why would you sign Juan Soto to a $500-600 million contract to come here while you're rebuilding?
Because he's 26. Because he's 26. That's why. But I'm saying, like, that's the pitch, because it's not like you're paying a guy who's 30, 31.
600 million. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I get it. I understand. But
then don't give me either one of them. Then don't give me either one of them.
I feel like they would do that if it was a possibility, because he's young enough and at an age where it's like you can still try to do some winning with him as you're retooling, and then once you're fully baked, if you will, as a team, you think that you're ready to run. But again, that's just me talking out of the mouth of the idea of trying to see things as they might be. But we're an hour and we haven't even gotten to the break yet. So
we should go into the break. Jesus, this is going to be one of those shows. Okay, so we're going to head into the break. If you're watching live, there's almost 200 of you. We appreciate all of you. I'm going to try not to yell as much in the second half. And speaking of the second half, this break is just real quick. It is just a 30-second ad spot we need for some stuff that plays on the audio version of this show. So don't go anywhere. It's not going to be a long break. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, all courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. We'll be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter and X, all courtesy of Brella Sports Network. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, plus your questions, your comments, your concerns, all of that stuff. Look, we all have different ideas on how this thing is going to shake out with the Mets. But right now, the one thing that none of us can disagree on is the fact that the team's not good right now. The team as a whole is not playing well. Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, let's have a quick conversation about our friends over at Independent Safes.
We love our friends over at Independent Safes, and sometimes we want to hide in them as well instead of watching this team. IndependentSafes.com is protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes, fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And we love our friends over at Independent Safes. Again, we want to hide in them instead of watching this team. And
you can. They told us they make panic rooms.
They make the panic rooms, and it's an idea that's been on my mind. I'm trying to harp more on my buddy that I work with, who's a partner over at Independent Safes. I'm like, I don't want to watch this team anymore. Can we just please lock me in one of these safes? And he was like, no, he'll lock me in there and to watch the games instead. But check them out. $99 and over, free shipping. It's the whole site. Check them out if you need something for a business, for yourself, for your own personal needs, whatever it may be. They got it all. independentsafes.com.
Got to check them out. And of course, while you're online, why not check out Manscaped? I mean, look, it's the summer, Ibby. It's basically getting warm everywhere. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend. It's the unofficial, official start to the summer everywhere. And you want to make sure that you're looking good. If you're a woman, you want to make sure that the dude in your life is looking good. If you've got a man as a partner, whatever, you want to make sure that dude is looking good. That dude is looking right. Yes, they also save balls. Make sure that you check them out. But with us, everybody here at Till Mets Do Us Part, you can get 20% off and free shipping across the entire site-wide. 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code TMDUP. Shave your balls. Trim your chest hair. And for the love of God, trim your nose hair, trim your ear hair. You get to a certain age, that shit starts sprouting out, and you don't want to look like some weird old Pixar cartoon. Fix your shit. Get your shit right as Ibby sits there and reads the fake newspaper. Okay.
It's not fake. It's real.
It's real, but it's all... I do appreciate their attention to detail, by the way, the Manscaped newspaper they send you as part of the package. Like, the whole thing... start to it's double-sided. It's like several pages.
It's legit paper.
It's a newspaper. Like, it's not just like you open it up and it's just like one sheet on the front. It's several pages. It's a real newspaper, and they really do a great job of packaging. Their products are great, so make sure you check them out. Ibby, I do want to bring up this comment from Carlos before because it's accurate. But he says the thing about money doesn't matter drives me nuts. I just don't get that way of thinking. Wealthy people are wealthy because they know how to manage their money and not because of bad investments.
All true.
It's all true. However, when you're talking about somebody who is rich enough to buy a sports franchise outright, one, they have more money than you, I, Carlos, anybody here can ever conceptualize. Likely, I hate to break this to you guys, I'm sorry, there is a very high likelihood that no one who is listening to the show, watching the show, will ever be a billionaire, let alone a 17-time billionaire, which is what Steve Cohen is essentially, right? It is a number that is almost infinite money. I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's an insane amount of money. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Steve Cohen is not 30 years old. Now, I'm not, forecasting his demise, but you don't buy a franchise, Ibby, straight cash, homie, when you're in your 60s because you think you can get buried with some of that money like a fucking pharaoh. You buy it to try to win. You also, and this is something I always say about the bad owners in sports, the John Fishers of the world, the one that don't want to spend any money. You don't buy a team without realizing that there's a piper you have to pay. You have to make a commitment to the team to winning. And sometimes that looks like exorbitant contracts. So you could say that that's not good baseball to sign Pete and Soto. I disagree with you, but that is one that I will entertain. If you're going to talk about it from a standpoint of counting a billionaire's money and talking about it in comparison to his other investments, his other investments have nothing to do with his investments in a baseball team. Don't. And if you hear him talk about it, he'll tell you, I didn't buy the Mets to make money. I make plenty of money at .72. Remember when he said that? I make plenty of money at my day job. I did not buy the Mets to make money. And he also did follow that up by saying it's not that he wants to bleed money and spend money out his ass, but whenever he thinks that makes sense to spend that money, he's going to spend that money. He's going to entertain it. Did he? Ibby, when they built, and I know it's not, the tune of $700 million for a player or whatever, but when he replaced the scoreboard in center field, was there anything wrong with the old scoreboard?
No.
Okay. And when he, replaced all of the TVs and everything throughout the building, was anything wrong with those old TVs? Now, I know it's a Samsung partnership, and I'm sure they gave him a deal on it and stuff like that to get those TVs in there, but he had to pay real money to do that. And this is something that they didn't have to change. And so, you just look at, this is not, with respect to Carlos, with respect to you, with respect to all of us. Again, I'm not in this position either. People have whatever investments they have. Maybe you have a Roth IRA, maybe you have a 401k, maybe you're in the stock market, whatever. This is not that investment for people like us. This is a billionaire 17 times over playing a game. That's what this is. You have to realize that. He's not wealthy and he's like, oh, he's pretty wealthy. He's at a level you can't even fathom. You need to understand that.
Yeah, and this is bringing up Keith's comment that he just said, which is what I said before as well. The dangerous situation with using the money. Yes, money can convince a player, but I only want someone who wants to be here. Because if you're miserable making X amount, you will see, and that's true. It's like that's why you need to build better. So players, yes, they want money. All players want as much money as possible. Every single one of them. But you want to be able to bring guys in here that want to be here and that are not just settling because, man, they're offering me $50 million more. That $50 million goes a long way. Now, again, I've always been the person where it's like, what's the difference between 200 million and 150 million? Like, what's another 50 million at that point? Because it's generational wealth. But again, I'm not that person. I'll never be that person making that decision. That's easy for me to say because I don't have that money. But everyone's different in that sense. But I understand that, Keith, 1,000%, because we want to have better players. But on the entire topic of this, I look at it and I say, what if you're going to talk about the money that he has, the good thing for me, that's always been the thing. When it comes to spending this money, the good thing about Steve Cohen is it doesn't handcuff us completely. If we've made bad investments before, it would handcuff us for 5 years because you'd have to pay it out. You don't want to do anything else because you don't want to add on top of it. And I'm not saying do this every year. You don't want to do this every year. But the point is, you're able to. That's why sometimes when it comes to paying out bigger contracts and things of that nature, it's okay because it's not going to handcuff you down the road, which we know is what a lot of these longer term deals end up being because you're paying for the front end. You're eating it on the back end because not everyone is going to play 10 years perfectly, giving you that X amount of money that they're making on that given year because you're paying for the front end. But
arguably there's been maybe 4 good contracts of like those extreme lengths since we've been going to those extreme lengths and those high dollar amounts, right? You could say the Max Scherzer deal in Washington was a slam dunk. He was great. They won a World Series. He won multiple Cy Youngs. He was terrific, blah, blah, blah. That was a great deal for them. You could say the CC Sabathia deal, I think was probably a great deal, even though he had that little bit of a stint where he wasn't that great. But I think that was part of that was an opt-out and then he re-signed. There hasn't been too many of these deals for 10 years or 8 years or 9 years, 100 million, 200 million. Most of them aren't good. That's the other thing that I think people need to realize. People are like, oh, like, again, I'm going to tell you Lindor's not overpaid, but they're all probably overpaid. All of them. Albert Pujols is probably the greatest player that any of us have ever seen in this era. His contract with the Angels was fucking abysmal. Abysmal. And he is one of the greatest right-handed hitters to ever live. And his contract was terrible. Terrible. Most of them aren't good. Full stop. So I don't know, again, like I'm going to say guys aren't overpaid, but if you're going to argue with me that some of them are, I'm going to tell you that they're all overpaid. And again, not from a standpoint of like people who, I think players have a finite amount of time to make money, and the top 1% of the top 1% of baseball players in the entire world should make as much money as they possibly can. So I'm not telling you they're overpaid. Like I think they should get paid less. I'm just saying if you're looking at that, then they're all overpaid. I see you, Rael. You brought up this comment a couple times. We'll get to it in a second. I didn't mean to interrupt you and derail the conversation. I apologize there.
No, it's okay. I mean, we can go to that now unless you want to go into something different.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up. This is a shout out to Mets Vent on Twitter, just because it's kind of a part of this conversation. He was having a lot of debates with people on Twitter today and into last night about Francisco Lindor and the notion of being underpaid, overpaid, and all that stuff. And he put out this interesting tweet. Now I know this is from Fangraphs, and you know, you can wonder whether or not that formula is whatever. But you know, you look at according to Fangraphs formula, one WAR is worth around $8 million. So just calling it 8 million flat, that would mean that Lindor's monetary value would be 33.6 million in 21, his bad year. 50. Oh, excuse me, that wasn't his bad year. 52.7 in 22 and 47.9 in 23, which means over the course of his contract to this point, he's made $102 million and he's been worth $134 million. Now, I know some people are going to throw that out and they're going to say WAR doesn't matter and all this stuff, but that is when you're measuring a player's value, that is a tangible thing in terms of their value on offense and defense, their totality of a player. He's outplayed his contract maybe 3 of the 4 years that he's been here. And so, again, if you want to talk good contract, bad contract, what it's worth, what it's not worth, you have to acknowledge all sides of it. And again, I know that's like a nebulous thing of like a player's value, but that, to me, it matters. And Patty disagrees. She says, I have Fangraphs, feel good stat just to justify ridiculous contracts. I can do math. That's inaccurate. Show me the math. Show me the math. Because that's the closest we're going to come. That's my point. It's an imperfect science, but this is the closest we're going to come to valuing it. Show me one that makes more sense. And if you're going to say winning World Series, well, only one team wins the World Series every year. So I guess every other team, all other 29 teams, every contract they have is bad. They're bad because they didn't win.
And I'm just seeing like Paul Revere. Welcome back, Paul Revere. Good to see you. What's the record with Lindor? I can't equate this entire, team's record.
Is this the NBA?
At the feet of Francisco Lindor. Like it's pitching. It's a lot of things that go into winning a baseball game. It's not just Francisco Lindor's fault. And this is why I hate talking about money, because it comes down to like, I just want players to play well. Like I'm not focused on the amount of money that you're making. Like, I'm sorry. Like I don't care when, I thought that Iron Man 2 stunk. I don't care that Robert Downey Jr. made $50 million to make a shitty movie. Like I'm not thinking about that. I was like, I wasn't that good. But I'm not screaming like, oh my God, he was paid this amount. It should be so much better. And it's like, no, I don't care. Like I just want my guys to play.
That's a great analogy.
I just want my guys to play well. And it sucks because Lindor is playing bad baseball right now. It's true. I'm not going to – I defend the guy constantly. I love Francisco Lindor. I loved him in Cleveland. I was ecstatic when he came here and he signed here. I wanted him. It was a dream for me to have him on this team. But has he been playing great this year? No, it hasn't been that great. I want him to play better. But I don't focus on the $34 million that he's making. I just want my guy to do well. Like that's it. Like that's all I want. That's why I can't stand, and I know we have to do it, but like that's why I don't care for the money discussion, because everyone always jumps down and says, this guy's getting paid X amount of money. He needs to be doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, just play good, man. Just play good ball. That's all I want.
And these are two good comments to that end. Tone Mets Trucker saying Yankees missed the playoffs last year with Aaron Judge. Do they blame Judge for that? Do they say they never won a World Series because of Judge? Like what? And then Paul Revere, in fairness, backing up his own comment. And I do agree with this furtherance. I'm just saying the numbers are skewed with this WAR stuff. Wins matter. They don't win enough. That's my point. I could care less about the money. And if that's your ultimate point, I agree with you. The Mets are not winning enough.
Yeah,
but I can't, like I said about the NBA, I can't lay it all at Lindor's feet because, in the NBA, you could have 3 really good players and win a championship because they're 3/5 of your starting lineup. And then if you got a couple good role players on the bench, you're golden. Baseball teams are bigger. Baseball teams, you need more than that. And I know you know that, Paul. I'm not, saying you don't, but it's just like, that's why I can't, be like, oh, Lindor, well, they need to win more because of it. Like, I don't see it that way. I don't. I really, really, really don't. And Subway saying they did blame Judge, though. Yankee fans blamed Judge in the playoffs after they got swept from Houston and he hit 62 home runs. Yeah, well, I mean, they're dumb too. I mean, you can't. I'm sorry. That's insane.
They booed him.
That's insane. Because do you even make the playoffs that year without Judge? The answer is no.
No.
You don't even get. Now, I understand he wasn't good in the playoffs. Fine.
No, he
you
wasn't.
don't fucking get there without Judge.
You look at that lineup without Judge.
He carried that team.
Yeah.
Carried that team. This is another a good point from Mets Truck. I saw Tone post this a lot. Lindor's batting .260 since hitting leadoff. I get the frustration, but the bat is coming around. And also, I think I starred this earlier from Douglas. This is a good comment from Douglas earlier. I like Lindor. I just wish we didn't have to wait 2 months for his advanced metrics to kick in. Fair. He's always been a slow starter. He's been a slow starter his whole time here. He's been a slow starter with Cleveland. Maybe I think two of the 4 spring trainings that Lindor has had with us, he's been an absolute monster in spring training. And then as soon as the calendar turns over and the games start for real, he starts slow. It's just what it is. It's what it is. And that's a very fair comment from Douglas. Like, I wish we didn't. I do too.
And that carries on to the point where it's like, and this is where the whole money thing becomes an issue, because everyone's like, oh, if he gets paid this much, he has to be the guy. But I agree with people when it's like, and I said this to Ant as an idea, I was like, maybe you just need one more player that's of bigger stature that can take a little bit more weight, whether it's take all the weight or alleviate the weight off of the Lindors and the Alonsos of the world, if that was the way that they chose to go, whichever it is, because they're not meant to be that. Because when you have players that go on extreme streaks for the negative, where it's a slow starter like Lindor or the peaks and valleys that come with a power hitter like Pete Alonso, well, then those guys can't be the focus of your team, because you're going to have extreme ebbs and flows to your season that can end up torching your season because it happened at the wrong time. If that's the case, you need to get a different type of ball player in there to alleviate and help in that sense.
And that's why, to bring the whole conversation full circle, and we'll transfer it over to Rael's comment. She's been very patient. That's why, Ibby, when people talk about blowing up the core, when people talk about changing all of this wholesale, that's why I counter that by saying, don't blow it up. You need to add to it. I'm not telling you that Lindor is an elite player, or rather an elite hitter. I think Lindor is, I got to give Carson credit for this, because I think he got the semantics down the way that I like to use them. He said Lindor is a superstar player. He's not a superstar hitter. And I think that's fair. Like Ronald Acuna Jr. is a superstar player and hitter. He's all around. He's great. I think that Lindor is a superstar because he plays shortstop, and he plays a great shortstop, and what he does offensively is wonderful. But I don't think he's on the level of some of those other people in terms of being the best hitters in the sport. So I think Lindor is a great player. I don't think he is a great hitter, a superstar hitter. And for Alonso, I think Alonso is good at 2 things. He hits a lot of home runs, and he happens to knock in a lot of runs because he hits a lot of home runs. I think he's great at that. But nobody's going to say that Pete Alonso is a great hitter. He's a great power hitter. And again, I don't want to get buried in the semantics here, but for everybody who says this core isn't going to get it done, add to the core, because Alonso and Lindor and Nimmo are all good enough to be your second and third and fourth, or third and fourth and fifth best players on the team. They're maybe not good enough to be your elite of the elite. I would say that the Mets don't have an elite player on their roster, period. Maybe if you want to count Edwin Diaz from 2 years ago, if he gets back to that level, he's an elite closer, but he's the only guy. Nobody else on their team, maybe you would categorize as elite. And I think that's the problem. You need, and this is what I've always said about the supporting staff. You need better other guys. You're running out Brett Beatty out there. Brett Beatty's horrendous. Jeff McNeil has been horrendous. I know they're only playing because Alvarez is hurt. Narvaez is horrendous. Tomas Nido's a backup player. You look out into the outfield, Harrison Bader's been really good. He's contributed in a way that you would expect him to contribute. His defense is fucking outstanding. And he's hit a little bit. He's been clutch, hit a couple home runs, hits lefties, blah, blah, blah. DJ Stewart's contributed, but that's, DJ Stewart, Harrison Bader, the fall of Starling Marte. These guys are role players. They're not starters on good teams all the time. You need these guys to be replaced with better players around. And if you think that the prospects are the better players, good. Let's get to the prospects then when we get there. But that's why I'm saying you got to be better. You've always talked about, what do you say, like increasing the floor of this team?
Yes.
So the floor is not as low. Right now the floor is low. The floor is low.
Oh, also, yeah, removing the floor and adding to our ceiling. Like, I want to take more risks. And, may I take this and lead into Rael's thing about
I want to say yes, but I have to ask this question to you
Sure.
and to Patty. I want to know what she means by this. The whole luck thing in baseball doesn't work in my head. I don't. Baseball is incredibly contingent on luck in a lot of ways. I don't know. I think there's a
I'm not sure if you can
if you can clarify that what you mean, because baseball is, you hit a line drive right at somebody, you did everything right, and you
hit the ball on the screws at 110 miles an hour, and the guy makes a play at third. It's like,
And I'm not even talking about like a spectacular diving play. I mean, you just you slug a ball at a third baseman and he goes like this and catches it. If it's a foot higher, it's a double down the line, you win the game. But instead, the game's over, you lost. Like that's luck. You hit the ball square, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So to Rael, what was the exact question about like establishing a culture? Is that what it was?
It was, I beg you, please address how you feel about winning, building a winning culture, how we would do that. So how do you feel that we would do that? Your thoughts on building a winning culture with the Mets. Everybody else comment, please. We want to know.
I will repeat what I have been saying over the last handful of months now. And that is, you build a winning culture from within. I will continue to comp this team to the New York Knicks, and I said the dark days of the Knicks, because they needed to understand that you couldn't just keep on buying things. You couldn't just be trying to find, will we be the belle of the ball, and will we get X player? Will they make us a contender? And blah, blah. It's like, you need to establish who you are as a franchise. You need to build from within. So to Hector's comment before, when he was talking about he wants to build around the likes of Nimmo and Alvarez because they are guys that are built from here, I understand that completely. You want to continue that, which is why, and I'll get into when we get onto the farm segment to end it, why I love the aggressive nature that David Stearns has implemented when it comes to our minors, and guys are getting, they're not wasting bullets in A ball, move them to double A. They're not wasting bullets in double A, move them to triple A. Like, they're moving guys along. You need to establish a culture that is younger as well. This is hand in hand. You need to find out, do the guys that I have in this system now, do they work? That's why these guys are getting moved along so quickly, because I want to see if this works. I've been saying it, and I believe it 1,000%. You find out more about yourself as a team if the young guys you bring up, the energy that the youth brings, if it permeates through your clubhouse and onto the field. I've said it time and time again when it came to the run that the Diamondbacks went on, when I look at someone like the Reds, when I look at someone like Baltimore. They are young teams that have built from within, and they are reaping the benefits of those builds. Do some of them take time? 1,000% they take time. But I have been saying to you, John, for the longest time, to my friends forever, before we had this show, I've been saying it and speaking into the ether, into the open air of Twitter, before I had any other people following me, that I wanted a plan. And if that's going to be the plan and you want to build that way, I'm fine with it. And then you add pieces on top. The successful way, the Dodger way, if you will, should really call it the Brave way, but the Dodger way, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but fuck the Braves. So let's call it
the Braves. So we'll call it the Dodger way. Fine. You build from within because you utilize your money to get your finishing pieces. You don't spend X amount. Like, it's tough because the Mets are in a rough spot, but that's really how you build it. You build something that others want to come to from within with your young, exciting talent. They go out there, they're having a good time. And then other players look at that and they go, man, could I work into that? Like, that's what's going on with the Knicks right now from the basketball side. And if CP was still here, any other Knicks fans as well, like, that's what's so exciting. And even it gets so good to the point that you find a guy in a Jalen Brunson for the Knicks, and now you get to the point where you're like, well, I don't know if I want to add a KD. I don't know if I want to add a Paul George. That's going to throw off the vibe of this team. Now I got to placate to that guy. Now, basketball is different than baseball, but the whole point is you want to be able to build something where stars and bigger players can say, yeah, I'll go there. They're going to pay me this. Yeah, I'm going to go. And I can work it. That's how you establish. It has to start from within. And this is why I trust David Stearns. He's putting everything on a fast track because he wants to see who works here. Does this work? And I have a draft coming up. I'm going to add more talent to this. I'm going to be trading guys at the deadline that are on these one-year deals because I want to add more talent, and I want to keep on moving things in and out. He's been DFAing guys left and right. He's been trying things out. He's clearly looking for specific things, and until he finds those things, he's going to keep on moving at this rapid pace. That, in my opinion, is how you go about establishing a culture first. And then when you establish that culture, that's when the winning then comes along. That's how I look at it.
I agree with you. And I agree with these comments. Junior Swingman saying, build a winner from the bottom up. I would say you build a winner from the bottom up in terms of your organization, your player personnel. You got to start at the minor leagues. You let them come through, which is exactly what you're describing. But I think the flip side of that is it has to start from the top down. And what I mean is the direction of the organization. David Stearns, in my opinion, is the right person to be at the helm of this team right now as they move into that transition. So I would say, yes, from a player perspective, organizationally, it's built from the bottom up. From a organizational mindset standpoint, it's built from the top down. And I think the Mets are in a good place in that regard. The other thing that I always say, and Paul Revere is with me on this, athleticism. You need younger, more athletic players. Baseball is played and won by players who are athletic and fast and do lots of things. And that's what the Mets need more of. And the Mets have some of those players, Ibby, in the minor leagues. And somebody said this before. I forgot who it was. It might have been Darren, saying that the Mets have the oldest team in the major leagues. Their average age is just over 31. That came up on the broadcast today because the Guardians have the youngest team. I believe their average age is like 24 or whatever, just under 25, whatever it might be. Yeah, the Mets are skewed in a weird direction. But again, the Mets have a lot of useless parts on their roster right now. If the Mets were able to, in the second half of the season, keep Pete Alonso, Lindor, and Nimmo on the team while jettisoning Jeff McNeil and Starling Marte and infusing, let's just say, I don't know, Drew Gilbert and Luis Angel Acuna. That is going to help change the tenor regardless of what Drew Gilbert and Acuna produce on the field, because you are going to see some hunger. You are going to see some want to prove that I belong. And Vientos is a part of that too, by the way. Vientos has been playing his ass off. And, you know, some douchebag who has WFAN caller in his fucking bio today, some sham fucking podcast host dipshit, told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. And, I'm patting myself on the back. Well, you know what? A lot of people talk shit. I am going to pat myself on the back when I get shit right, Ibby. And what did I say when he went down, Vientos, and everybody wanted him up? I said he needs to go down to the minor leagues and play third base every day, because the odds are we are going to need him at third base before we need him anywhere else. And I don't know if he's ever going to be a good third baseman. I'm not 100% sure he can ever be a good third baseman, but that's where we're going to need him. And that's where he has been. And he's made all the plays. He's looked pretty good. And he's hit. He's hit.
7 for 21.
Thank you, Rosie.
4 doubles, 1 homer, 3 walks since rejoining the team. He's earning it, needs offense. He should be playing every day.
Should be playing every single day. And he's earned it. He's deserved it. He needs to be in the lineup more often. You want to sit him against a really tough righty. Fine. Everybody gets days off. You know what I mean? But Ibby, we're getting to the point.
Hold on. Just because Mets trucker has to come in here saying, "Say my name, Ibby. Talk to me dirty. I was right." Look, I'll give you your flowers because I'm a man. I'll give you your flowers, Tone. But I will say, and I said in the comments before, I don't know if you responded, but my 2 weeks that I had when it came to Brett Beatty, I did not get to celebrate because you went on a hiatus. And that's a little unfair because it's like I didn't get my moment to say, my guy's doing pretty good. And now, you want to stake claim. But I will say, Mets trucker, Tone, it was cute. Yeah, it was cute. Anyway, Mark Vientos is running. That was cute too. How about that? But either way, I'm happy he's producing. We need offense. I want it.
When you look at it, this team's, I'm not trying to put it all on one player, but this team's fortunes in some ways changed when Ronnie Mauricio got hurt. Not to say that he was a savior, but Ronnie Mauricio was going to provide something that the Mets didn't think they had, and now maybe they do have with Vientos if he can play a serviceable third base. Ronnie Mauricio protected you from a Beatty not panning out, and he protected you from a Jeff McNeil not being good enough. And so you lost him, and what you got stuck with was a lineup that featured Brett Beatty and Jeff McNeil and sometimes Joey fucking Wendell. And, when you have a guy, look, I said this a couple weeks ago. I was like, look, the reason why the Mets aren't bringing up Mark Vientos is because nobody plays shortstop.
Right.
If they get rid of Joey Wendell, now Joey Wendell became so bad that they had to do this. They weren't getting any offense. Joey Wendell was costing them games on both sides of the ball. Mark Vientos is tearing the cover off the ball. They're like, look, Lindor, fucking saddle up. You're playing every fucking game. It is what it is. They had to do that because they were in dire straits.
Yes.
But the reason why it took them that long is because they need a guy who can back up at shortstop. Now, that guy, for all the errors that he might make or whatever, was originally going to be Ronnie Mauricio, because at least he is somebody who can play the position, who has reps at the position. Now, yes, you're hoping, I know Carson doesn't like either one of these guys, but you're hoping that soon, at some point, Jet Williams or Acuna come up, and they're guys who have played shortstop too, and that helps alleviate that load. They're not going to play shortstop every day, but they're a guy who can slide over and play shortstop that can give Lindor a spell if and when he needs it. The Mets don't have that right now. Hey, guys, just newsflash, your backup shortstop, your emergency shortstop is Jeff McNeil. And Ibby, I think we are dangerously close. And Brett Beatty. To that end, Ibby, we are so fucking close to Brett Beatty going to AAA and Jose Iglesias coming up to be the backup infielder on this team. It is close. I think we're less than 2 weeks away from that happening.
And again, it's sad that I'm not saying it's you that's doing it, but like a lot of people continue to pine for Jose Iglesias like he's like this great ball player, and it's like Jose Iglesias, right? Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ. Like that's when stuff like that happens, and it's only May 22nd. You're like, holy shit, we're pining for Jose Iglesias. Clearly, something is wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look,
especially Ant's been begging for you. He really wants Jose Iglesias.
That's how far Brett Beatty has fallen. And again, it's about putting better. Look, it's a small, like you keep talking about raising the floor of how bad this team can be, raising the level up higher. It's about that. Now, this is an incremental increase, but, Mets Trucker saying, Iglesias or Bannon, like it's some of these guys or Brosseau, the guy that they signed who was the backup in Milwaukee all those years, right? Like there comes a time if Brett Beatty is not your starting third baseman, Ibby, he doesn't do a lot for you. You're going to need a guy who can play second, can play short, can play third, maybe play first, whatever. Brett Beatty's not that guy. If Brett Beatty's not a starting third baseman on your team, he does not deserve to be on your team. You can't, the way the Mets are built right now, you can't carry Vientos and Beatty. Now, you can carry them for a little while because you can do something to make sure that Vientos deserves to play every single day. versus righties versus lefties. And obviously, Brett Beatty deserves a tremendous amount of credit for what he's done to his defense, getting his defense at a very, very, very high level. You're still going to want to probably play Brett Beatty late and close at third base in games that Vientos starts. But Ibby, we're just, you can't afford to carry both those guys. The Mets have to start cutting bait with some of the dead weight, and there's too much dead weight on this team. And that's why I keep saying it, and I don't want to go backwards, but that's why I personally have a hard time, even though I acknowledge that they do need to play better. I have a hard time blaming Alonso, Nimmo, Lindor, and even to a lesser degree, Alvarez before he got hurt, and JD Martinez now that he's here. I have a hard time blaming those guys as long as there are still so many bad fucking baseball players on this team. Give me some better baseball players around them and let me know how this goes. I'd like to see that.
No, I get it, because when you look at the back end of the lineup on certain nights, you're legit giving away sometimes two innings, essentially, based off of the results that you get from the back end of the, like, you're giving away a lot, and that puts more pressure. And it's like it's all part of the, that falls into the OPS category too, because those guys fail in big spots too. It's not just the other guys, but the main guys get a lot of the flack because they're expected to do well, and they need to do better. We're being honest, like, they need to be better. But yeah, it's just like all in all, everyone needs to be better.
I will say this, right? Like this lineup that they've been running out there that I also said they were going to do before the season, and everybody told me I was stupid, but whatever. I'm going to keep patting myself on the back, but look, this lineup, whether they score 7 runs, whatever, 6 runs like they did yesterday, or just 3 runs like today, don't you feel a little bit better with Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, JD Martinez, DJ Stewart, and Mark Vientos 1 through 6 than you do if you stick Marte or McNeil or Beatty in that top 5 or 6? They just feel like they're a lineup, even if they're not, because again, baseball's a game of ebbs and flows. They feel like a lineup that can do damage. Now you insert Alvarez into that mix and you push some of those guys down a little bit. You go Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, JD Martinez, Alvarez, DJ Stewart, Mark Vientos. Now you're looking at a lineup that's getting deep. Actually, legitimately getting deep.
Yeah.
You got to stop having these guys that are automatic fucking outs. And to your point, Junior, bring up Acuna, send down Beatty, make McNeil a super utility player. That's the goal. It's too early. Acuna's not been good enough.
Two more hits for Acuna today, I think it was. Yeah, 2 more hits. So he's, again, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He's doing better. He's doing better, but yeah, I think it's still a ways away.
Yeah.
But speaking, like, do you want to
touch on the farm stuff, and then let's get out of here before we get 2.5 hours into this show and people are just like dropping off like flies. Although, look, the numbers have been very consistent. We appreciate you guys for sticking with us.
Love everyone, and if you're here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. I know we've had a good amount of people in here, so make sure you're liking the video. It goes a long way in helping us. Make sure you vote on the poll. Make sure you vote on the poll in our community tab as well. But there's been a lot of negativity and a lot of questions that have been brought about from this team on the major league level, but there is a lot of good. What I was talking about before when it comes to building a winning culture, there's a lot of good that's going on down on the farm. Okay, a couple of things when it comes to the promotions, when it comes to seeing promotions over the last week. Okay, we have Noel McLean, our 2-way Cowboy Ohtani, going to Double-A, playing for the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. And we got Blade Tidwell, who's getting closer, like we talked about, being that guy that could be the one that we see sooner rather than later. Blade Tidwell's been promoted to AAA Syracuse after his good run with the Rumble Ponies. But that's not all. We've had a lot of good when it comes to our pitching in general, which is what Ant Rivera said in the comments. Mm-hmm. You got to develop your pitching, and then you attack position players in free agency if you're not going to develop them. And the Mets have had a problem when it comes to developing position players for a while, outside of Pete Alonso. But they've had an issue.
Don't say that.
They've had an issue when it comes to developing bats. But the arms, there's something to get excited about. We have Jonah Tong, his last start. He went 6.2 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 Ks. His K percentage at Brooklyn's up to 26.7%. It's the first time as a pro he's been in the 7th inning. So we're seeing a lot of growth for him. And a lot of the carryover that he had from St. Lucie is carrying over into Brooklyn, which is great to see. You'll love to see it from a young pitcher. And of course, Brandon Sproat also recently got promoted. There's a lot of talent in Binghamton right now. 7 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 9 Ks, 85 pitches, 60 of which were strikes. He's got a 2.25 ERA with 15 Ks in 12 innings since his AA promotion. His stuff is carrying over as well. There's a lot of good that is going on. And like I said before, I'm very excited because David Stearns is being uber aggressive and moving these guys throughout the system. And it's to the point where you're going to see some of these guys at some point post deadline doing some work for this team and saving some of those bullets for the major league club. So I'm excited about that. But for as much negative as there is to use Paul Revere here, the cavalry is coming. And there is some talent that can be seen and utilized for this season, as well as getting an idea of what they could do for us in the coming seasons.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. Would be a bit of an indictment on Dom Hamill and Mike Vassell if Blade Tidwell makes his major league debut before either one of them do. But listen, it should be, especially when you talk about young players, prospects coming up, it should be
best players play.
Meritocracy. And we saw it with Christian Scott. He passed by both of those guys, like just passed by him running like fucking Forrest Gump, just right by him. And Blade Tidwell is on his way. You know, he has a few really solid outings in AAA. You know, Ibby, there's not a lot sometimes that you can prove in AAA, right? Like if you're geared up as a pitcher, you know, they're not necessarily looking for you to sharpen things at AAA. They're looking to see how you do against some rehabbing bats, some guys who were major leaguers in the past. You know, everybody always says the biggest jump is from single A to AA. And by the time you get to AAA, you know, you're close. You're knocking on the door. You're only one step away. I know that, but you could be up there at any point. So, you know, Blade Tidwell well on his way. I'm happy that you mentioned that the Mets have not developed any hitters since Pete Alonso. I mean, obviously Alvarez is here, and you know, Vientos looks to be doing some good stuff. But it was funny. Last week I tweeted, I said Pete Alonso is the 3rd best hitter the Mets have ever developed after David Wright and Darryl Strawberry. You know, you flip a coin between those two guys, different skill sets, which one you like better, right? David Wright or Darryl Strawberry. People are like, I can't believe you would mention Pete Alonso in the same breath as Darryl Strawberry and David Wright. And blah, 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 blah. I'm like, tell me the 3rd guy. Tell me the 3rd guy who's better. And I don't want to hear Cleon Jones. He was great. He's probably the 4th guy. I don't want to hear Jose Reyes. He's probably the 5th guy. Also, he pushed his wife through a glass door, so fuck him to death. So, you know, but I don't want to hear that he's not the 3rd best position player hitter they've ever developed, because he is. And that is without a doubt, period, full stop. Let's jump into the comments here. Got some folks at Carson saying, yeah, Vassell just isn't that good. That's possible. That's very possible. It seems likely at this point, but you know, it's early it's early-ish for him. You know, he hasn't been up, but just appreciate you guys. Carlos saying, Carlos Ortiz, show is great. Love the back and forth. Thank you. Paul Revere saying you guys should have way more subscribers. Sincerely. Thank you for that.
Trying to figure it out, man.
Junior Swingman saying, Ibby and John, I give you dudes credit for feeling optimistic about this team. Look, I mean, Junior, you've been here the whole time, pretty much, I think today, you know, since the beginning of the episode. And we're not feeling positive, but you know, you do have to find the things to look for, and the Mets do have some things
there are
to look forward to. There are things, especially with a long baseball season.
Yeah, it's not working. And like I said in the comments too, like I felt like I was very fair today in terms of, you know, I mean, when I think about like the positivity aspect, I don't know if I was like uber positive. I felt like I was straightforward, honest, and I think my positivity really showed more towards the end there when I was talking about the guys that are probably like a year or two away, talking about the minors, because that's been at least exciting baseball. I said at the beginning, and I'll say it to close here, like I don't think that what I've been seeing on TV is good baseball. I usually, for our I know John's not a part of it, but you know, the Facebook side, I do run the Facebook group for the show. And I usually, keyword usually, do a write-up after every game. I do a write-up for everyone in there, all, you know, 250 plus people that we have in there, whatever it is. And I haven't been doing them. And I apologized to them the other day because I was like, guys, I wish I wish there was something for me to write, but I don't have anything to write for you because I think everything would end up sounding the same, and I don't want to do that. And it's bad baseball, and I want better. I came into this season. This is my final point. I came into this season wanting a better brand of baseball that I thought could be there with lesser expectations attached to this team. And it didn't happen. At least to this point, it hasn't happened. They are not playing well within those given margins that they have to play within to be a better team. I was told defense would be here. Defense isn't here. They're not playing well enough. I thought, and I was very high on the top 5 guys in this offense to provide the offense, to jump the scoreboard, to help these pitchers. Not there. Failing. Pitching overall has been great. I love what I've seen from the pitching. I love what I'm seeing throughout the minors when it comes to the pitching. But you need offense. You need to score runs. And that's why I'm very, very low on this team from what I've seen over the last 30 games now. You know what they've lost 20 of their last 29 games or something like that, whatever it is. I know they've lost 14 of their last 20. I know that for sure, but it's not good baseball. So I don't want you to think that I'm just coming here and waxing poetic about this team because it's my favorite team. It's like, no, I'll pull some things, but I'm going to speak the truth. And I haven't seen a lot of good. And I think John is going to echo the same. He hasn't seen a lot of good, but we're also here to again, this is why I like that our show is once a week. It allows you to not be as reactionary because I understand why people are reactionary when they do this every single day and they're doing something because you have to be. You have to talk about the moment and you're going to sound crazy as you do it every day, but that's what you want to do. I think the week allows us to take things in, understand it, and not be as emotional. And I think that's what provides the good back and forth between the two of us.
I agree. I agree with all that. Douglas Barnes saying Ray has also bunted, took himself out of the game to lock up his batting title. F him. Yeah, pretty soft way to lock up a batting title. Explosive saying, will Matt Allen return this season? Is he still hurt? And Carson saying Matt Allen will be a 33-year-old rookie if he ever makes his debut. And Paul Revere with maybe the comment of the show, Matt Damon will start a game before Matt Allen starts a game. That is accurate. You know, listen, hey, he bought a zoo. He can do anything. He was the Martian. He can do anything. Ibby, yeah, I just want to get out of here on a couple thoughts. Sucks the news with Brooks Raley, probably threw his last pitch as a Met. Yeah. He's got Tommy John, a guy who was a late bloomer, really came on late in his career to find success. Probably won't pitch again until he's 37, 38 years old with this injury, taking him out for a full year, all that stuff. Sad for him. I don't like his beliefs. I don't like that he boycotted Pride Night. Just wear the stupid hat, man. It's like doesn't have any bearing on your life when he was with Tampa. But you don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see anybody. I don't relish in that. And that sucks because he's been a good pitcher for the Mets. And hindsight being 2020, we talked about how important it was for the Mets to keep him when they were doing that sell-off last year. And as it turns out, would have been, if you know he's going to get hurt, they would have traded him last year, but you don't know that. And that's Monday morning quarterbacking. But it's just a bummer because it doesn't go right for him and doesn't go right for the Mets. So all around, that's bad. Senga with the little setback. Ibby, we'll see Senga when we see him. It doesn't matter at this point.
At this point, it doesn't matter. Take your time.
Take your time. Look, I don't know. I truly don't know if it's a setback or if it's what they're talking about. Where, listen, players from other countries are built different. They have different, especially like players from other countries that have pro leagues at the level that Japan does, right? Like, when you talk about player coming over from the Dominican who signs as a 16-year-old shortstop and goes through a team's baseball academy, that's a little different than a player who pitches professionally in Japan for a long time and then comes over here. Like they're, all baseball players, all athletes, all people, we're creatures of habit and we do things a certain way. And so if Senga feels that he has to do things a certain way, maybe, I don't know if it's a smokescreen. I truly don't know. I'm not in the Mets clubhouse. You're not in the Mets clubhouse. I don't know if it's a smokescreen, if there's been a setback. I just know it's a bummer. And you know what? Whatever he needs to do to get right and get back. That's it. And when it happens, it happens. And then lastly, the Diaz stuff it sucks.
It sucks. It does.
I think what we're seeing with Diaz is a guy who hasn't pitched in a year going through some issues with not having pitched in a year. His velocity is down on both of his pitches. His location is down mostly on his slider. It's also flatter, and he's leaving pitches in the middle of the plate because his command is off, and he's either falling behind and throwing it right down the middle so he doesn't walk guys, or he's hanging the sliders. I just, right now, I think it's a symptom of not pitching. I think ultimately he'll be fine, but it does suck because, Diaz he's great. And, he's a really good dude who gave his heart and soul to this team. And you can tell it's bothering him. And just from the human side, I want the closer to be electric, and I want the trumpets, and I want all of that if the Mets are good or bad or whatever, but it sucks to watch him in this way.
It does. And the only thing I'll put on it is I think you're watching a guy that wants to live up to an entire persona. And we've seen how personas and nicknames and things like that can really wear on players like a Matt Harvey, like a Noah Syndergaard. And now it's like Edwin Diaz is trying to be that guy with the light show and the trumpets and the entrance and the video, like all that stuff when it comes to it. I think he wants to be that guy. I think he knows he can be that guy, but you're coming off of a serious injury, and sometimes it's just not there, and you need to work your way back towards it. And I had said it, in the offseason to expect some ups and downs when it comes to Diaz. Did I think that they were going to be this extreme? I didn't, but it's at the same time, it's not all that shocking that there is a struggle. I think eventually he will figure it out, and he'll get his head right. He'll get his head right, and he'll get it, everything, proper between the ears, and he will be back. It might take some time, but at the rate that this team is going, take your time and figure it out, Edwin.
Douglas saying, on the positive note, Diaz should have a lot of blowout games to rebuild his confidence, which is a funny joke, and I don't mean to ruin the joke, but excuse me, the Mets have actually played tickle in my throat. I apologize for that. Jeez, I almost died. The Mets have actually played in a lot of close games, and that's been the problem, maybe. The Mets have lost a lot of one-run games because they either haven't hit enough, haven't pitched well enough, or haven't played crisp enough defense. So, the blowout thing, again, I don't want to ruin the joke, but that's been the frustrating part. Paul Revere, though, saying maybe they should change his entrance song. A nice flute song may help. And, it's funny because somebody did say that they might, if they're putting him in lesser roles, I do stand by this. Maybe don't play the music too. I think, just like not living up to
if he's coming in like the sixth, don't play the music.
I think just take it down a notch, take the expectations down. And I do want to say something, and some people might give me shit for this. I love Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier's become a friend. He's been on this show. He's been on other shows that I've done. I interviewed him at the QBC. I like Foul Territory. I think those guys do a lot of good stuff. Jonathan Papelbon was on that show. Jonathan Papelbon is a fucking maniac. Jonathan Papelbon has killed more clubhouses than anybody I've ever seen. And he was on that show talking about oh man, if a guy's not doing well and he's crying in the clubhouse and you're like, you're a fucking loser. You're this, you're that, you're that. And I'm like, bro, you've been the biggest clubhouse cancer of the last 15 years, first of all. And second of all, can we drop the archaic, sexist, view? Listen, I know plenty of men who don't cry. I know plenty of women who don't cry. I know plenty of men who cry. I know plenty of women who cry. It's not a sign of weakness how you process emotion. And again, you have to take the entire thing into context when you're talking about a guy like Diaz. This is a guy who, highest of high, closing out a game for his native Puerto Rico, to tearing up his knee after signing a big contract and all this stuff and losing a season in the major leagues, comes back, shows a lot of poise and a lot of success, and then has it kind of stripped back from him. This is an emotional thing. How dare you come out there and say something like that? That is just despicable. And also, you've been an asshole. You've been an asshole your whole career. Fuck you, honestly. It's for real. And I would say that if Diaz wasn't even on the team. This is bullshit. Paul Revere, that's true. Can confirm. His horse never cries. He gets the job done. I don't think horses can cry. I don't know.
He would know. I don't know. He would know.
I don't know. But yeah, anyway, let's get out of here. We're at 2 hours, and we're probably going to do this again tomorrow with with Carson. We are going live.
It was cathartic. It was needed.
It was cathartic. It was needed.
It was needed.
Yes. And look, I'm not going to bring this up, but I'm I'm just gonna say this on the way out. Douglas saying I'm more okay with Diaz crying than I am with Lindor's thumbs down when it comes to confidence. I'm not gonna bring up the thumbs down thing, but yeah, I mean, like, how? Come on, like, how are you gonna hate on somebody just for crying? Like, come on, it's just ridiculous. Mr. Nobody, if we hear trumpets in the second inning, season's over. Yeah, I don't want trumpets in the second inning, for the love of God. No. Anyway, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. We appreciate all 225 of you who are here right now.
Thank you so much.
Anybody who watched
Sub
any
the channel.
part of this show, subscribe to the channel, hit your thumbs up. This is all live, courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. If you missed anything, as soon as we're done here in a moment, you can go back on our YouTube channel, which is called Till Mets Do Us Part. You'll watch the entire thing. While you're watching us on YouTube or Twitter, wherever you're at, make sure that you subscribe, like it, retweet it, all that stuff. Do all of that. It helps us grow. Paul said earlier, Paul Revere, that he wants us to have more subscribers, and we're trying. We're
Me
trying,
too.
man. But thanks to everybody who's here. Thanks to everybody who tunes in, listens, all that stuff. And in about an hour or so, if you missed anything, you'll also be able to listen to this show on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, all of those places and more, wherever it is you get your podcast. And again, everything is all courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. We appreciate you guys. Like I said before, that's Ibby. I'm John. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.